Let me ask you a question. When we look at newer aircraft, for example, like the 787, when it was, released just a few years ago, I was very, very impressed with how much improvement there was in fuel efficiency. And then when we look at older aircraft, like, for example, the A330, A340, they were much less efficient, the 4-engine and 2-engine aircraft. Now, tell me, how important is it to be looking at fuel efficiency factors, even though we have newer, more fuel efficient aircraft versus the older, aircraft?
Yeah, so here, not only fuel efficiency is important, but also aircraft performance and monitoring what is the current performance of your aircraft, even if this is very new aircraft. So what we found out, for example, that some of the new engines deteriorate quite quickly. So, and at the entry into service, they burn not a lot of fuel, and they are really fuel efficient, but they deteriorate very quickly, and the advantage goes down over the older engines. So, of course, for the old aircrafts, every mistake costs more because they burn more. But for the new aircraft, it's also important to monitor the fuel consumption.
So let's talk for a minute about the factors that affect your analysis that you do. Now, I know that in the industry there's been a tremendous increase in the amount of digital and digital transformation that we have, and our ability to be able to consume more data. All right, so the 787 has a tremendous amount of data, and engines have a tremendous amount of data. Now, Emil, how does that affect our ability to be able to do fuel efficiency analysis today?
So for airlines, it's very difficult. Usually the IT departments of airlines are understaffed, and the task is really huge. Yeah? Amount of data, even from one flight of 787, is just huge to analyze. We, as a company which specialize in analyzing such data, can have all the resources we need to do so, and also experts in field of data analysis, data processing, and so on. So it's easier for us to do so. But even airlines can do stuff with the data they have. We know that some airlines have their own machine learning departments, which try to predict what will be the fuel use given different scenarios. So I think all of this going into new areas of analysis and of data is important for airlines as well.
Yeah, Emil, let me ask you this question. I know that we have information coming off of the airplane. I know that we have operational considerations. How do we operate the aircraft? How do we plan? How do we fly? We have air traffic control considerations. All those factors, create a very complex model. I mean, how do you go about sorting out, optimization of such a complex situation? Does data help you to do that today?
Yeah, so especially connection between data and the artificial intelligence or machine learning, which is also quite popular right now. Then you don't have to spend really a lot of time building these physics models. And as a physicist, I know this is difficult. You just put a lot of data and some insight as well into it, and you get really, really good predictions of what would happen if something changes. Yeah, if pilot would fly a flight level higher, yeah, for example, and you will be able to know how much you can save really on this particular aircraft and on this particular route.
So, Emil, if I'm an airline or if I'm an operator, I'm just trying to figure out where to start. And I know that some operators have very mature programs, and some are, just starting down a journey to try to create more efficiency. Where do I start? Do I start looking at my operations? Do I look at my flight planning? Do I look at my where do I even start? How do I do this?
So I think it's always good to start looking at the fuel policies you have, how much fuel you take on board, because then you don't have to analyze lots of data. You basically analyze only the flight plans you have, and you can get some insights from it. And this is also easy to correct relatively. So this is a good place to start. And then you can go anywhere. Yeah? You can try to optimize flight speeds better than the manufacturers of the aircraft do. You can try to analyze single engine taxi. This is also an important area of optimizations. Yeah. And
okay, so we start looking at our policies or our practices, and we start identifying certain areas where we might be able to create some optimization. How does the availability of data help me to pinpoint where those changes need to be made?
So, for example, if you're interested in single engine taxi, just look how much fuel was burned during taxi on one particular aircraft during dual engine operations and single engine operations. You can take the difference of these two averages over some lots of flights, and you will know how much you could save. This will be not very precise, of course. Yeah, you will probably have error of 50% or something, but you will know at least something. Yeah, and without data, you hear a lot of claims. Yeah, do single engine taxi, you will save a lot of fuel, but this may be not true. Yeah, you don't have proof that this will happen.
Yeah, that's really a good example, because I know that you said before, like contingency fuel, for example. I know that pilots, want to have a comfortable margin, and it makes a really big difference, doesn't it? And the weight to the aircraft and how much fuel you're tankering around. If you don't need all that contingency fuel, that makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. And actually, statistical contingency is a great idea to implement, because it not only on the majority of flights lower the amount of contingency fuel you take, but on the routes where actual contingency fuel you have to take is higher, because, for example, usual bad weather on the route or something like that. Calculating statistical contingency fuel will tell you that you have to take more fuel, yeah, and it may be even more than whatever 5% or a different policy.